Hey guys, before the podcast starts, I just wanted to let you know that we had a couple audio issues. One of the audios kind of cut out, so we had to use the backup one, and the quality is going to be a little bit lower in the start, and there were some other reverby issues going on with using that backup as well throughout the podcast. It shouldn't affect the overall experience, but if you hear anything weird going on, that's kind of what happened. Hello, and welcome to the 11th Planet Destiny podcast. I know we said Sir Wallen was going to be here this week, but unfortunately he had to dip out at the last minute due to work. He will be here next week, though. He has promised this, and I'm holding him to it. Anyway, we have our normal Briar Rabbit here. Hello, Briar Rabbit.
Hello, everybody. How you doing this week?
And then we also have two guests with us. We have, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Corey, you introduce yourself first.
Hey guys, my name is Corey, aka Six, and I am a MLG TV streamer as well as the media manager for Strictly Business Gaming, which is a professional esports team.
And hopefully this podcast, we're going to be talking a lot about the competitive side of Destiny, hopefully in both PvE and PvP. To bring us another view on that, our other guest, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am SC Slayridge, and I've made some YouTube videos and I stream Destiny pretty often.
And by made a few YouTube videos, he's putting it very lightly. You were, if I remember right, you were like the first guy to duo the Vault of Glass. I believe you're the first person to solo Crota in both normal and hard mode.
Yes, that is true.
So
I've made some impressive YouTube videos. I should have put that word in there, I suppose.
Well, we have some very talented players here in the podcast with us today. Both Corey and Slayer Age are pretty high up on the rankings. So I'll just go ahead and start the conversation off. Do you guys think Destiny can actually provide a circuit for competitive play similar to, like, you know, other FPS titles? Like we have Call of Duty. So Corey, you're really familiar with that. And then I'm a little bit more familiar with like the PC side of things, Planet side, and Counter-Strike are the two other FPS games I'd probably say. So do you guys think Destiny can actually be as competitive as those games?
I do believe with the right support from Bungie and venues like MLG and UMG is another big one, that it can be done. But it needs support from three different areas. It's got to have, obviously, fan support. It's got to have the developer support from Bungie. And there has to be a third party involved to facilitate like a foundation for like streaming matches and, you know, prize money and things like that for it to actually be a competitive circuit. I think, you know, with the shift in how like MLG, you know, it's built around competitive, it's Major League Gaming. They've added a lot of different areas to their streaming service. It used to just be, you know, Call of Duty pros could stream on there, but it's they've started taking cues from Twitch and stuff, with like showing what different games people are playing. And I think that most of the Invigorate clan, which is a big Destiny clan for like PvE and stuff like that, I know they do like a world's first on raids and things like that. So I know like MLG is reaching out to start a foundation with different games, including like Halo and stuff like that. But I feel like, you know, the fan support is there. I think that Destiny has a large enough community. We've all seen the numbers, how many people play for, you know, 3 hours every day. So I think that the fan support is there. I think, you know, Bungie basically facilitated what competitive arena-based gaming is with Halo. I know I've read articles even as far back as like 2012, 2013, where they were talking to Bungie about what their, you know, competitive focus is, and they all spoke about how, you know, it's a huge debate within the offices, you know, like what should we do, what do we focus on, things like that. I think that with this first iteration of Destiny, they're building the world, and that, you know, private matches and things like that will be added at some point in time. And then I think once, you know, that's why Titanfall failed. There was no private matches. But I think once you enable that for the community, you'll have the fan support, the developer support, and then a third party will swoop in and see, you know, with dollar signs in their eyes, they'll swoop in and also support it. So I definitely think they could.
Maybe PlanetDestiny, we could be that third party, start it up.
That's entirely possible. If you guys started like a ladder, for competitive gaming, I mean, most of the time, MLG buys up competitors or partners with them and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what happened with the UMG people. But I mean, that's all it takes is, just a dedicated group of people to create ladders and events, and, prize money can be done in a lot of different ways, like donations and stuff like that. So I definitely think that it's in the making.
Okay, cool. Slayer, did you want to chime in there?
Yeah, I actually recently heard that She's My Nerd and his clan, for those who are unaware, She's My Nerd is a pretty popular big-time PvP streamer for Destiny. I think he's number 2 on the Destiny Tracker list, and they actually had a tournament that they organized where they played against some of their clanmates and possibly other clans. I'm not really 100% sure how it worked, but they had a set of rules that they were going by, which involved no fusion rifles, no heavy ammo, some other stuff that I don't exactly remember. But what it kind of brought my attention to is that if there's going to be competitive PvP evolving from Destiny, then it's going to absolutely require that the people who actually get into it agree on a set of rules for what should and should not be allowed.
Absolutely.
Which would be pretty hard to do with Destiny, because if you have something like Fellwinter's Lie, for instance, people can have Shot Package and Hammer Forged and have an amazing shotgun that, in my opinion, should be banned in competitive play. And if you want to get rid of Fellwinter's Lie completely, then you would be getting rid of all the other rolls on it. And then if you say Judgment is allowed, then you would pretty much have to boil it down to the Vendor Judgment shotgun, because like you can get a roll on Judgment that's just as good as Fellwinter's Lie if you're lucky.
Yep.
So if you try and boil it down to only Vendor weapons, then it gets... I guess it would kind of be a pain in the ass to get your character prepared for PvP, because you would need to get 150 marks, if you get 450 marks to buy 3 different vendor weapons, that's going to take you, if you have 3 characters, at least a week or 2 weeks to get all the marks you need to get the weapons, which is ridiculous. Yep. And the amount of time that people would put into getting those weapons just doesn't really add up to making it worthwhile, because there'd be like 4 or 5 people competing in a PvP tournament. And for that reason, it would be very difficult to get it organized. But I do think that Destiny definitely has the foundation for it, because Bungie made it. Bungie made the Halo games, which are arguably the most competitive, or the most balanced, I guess, first-person shooter competitive games that have ever been made. So I'm sure that the potential is there, but I have a really hard time believing it will be explored without custom games. Because I think custom games where you could actually determine what weapons players have would completely negate all of the difficulties of people actually having prepared loadouts.
That would solve the issue, right? Because then you could have, there's 6 shotguns you could choose from. All of them have been approved by, let's say Bungie's governing body, or, whoever decides. If they just had one set of custom rules that everybody who enters this is allowed to have any of these 6 shotguns, these 6 pulse rifles, these 6 sniper rifles, and they're all included in this list of approved weapons, and then players could still customize their character, customize their loadout, but they wouldn't have anything like a one-shot kill sniper rifle or a extreme distance shotgun.
Yeah, and that seems like that would be a really good idea to me. And I feel like that would actually be pretty similar to Call of Duty, and it would be like a Destiny spin on a Call of Duty style matchmaking. As I understand Call of Duty, it's been a while since I've played it, but like choosing your loadouts and having a bunch of different options would be reminiscent of that from my experience, at least. And I do think that's a system that works pretty well, and it's definitely fun, and it would be a lot more balanced and fair than what they currently have in the Crucible.
Maybe if there was like a governing body for competitive Destiny where there were 5 default classes, like a support type of class, or like a crowd control, like map manipulative class where like you could throw like the grenades that the hunter has, the swarm grenades where you can block a passage or something, but have guns approved by the community and by this governing competitive body, like shotgun wise with perks and everything, so that everybody has the same stats, everybody has the same armor on their Guardian, everybody has the same guns and things like that. Maybe that's a Not
At the same time, though, I think that does take away a lot of the customization that I really like about Destiny, where I love going into a match and being able to at will change my playstyle based on what weapons I'm using
or what you're encountering on the map at the time.
Yeah, I will say that if competitive Destiny came in, they'd have to take a page from WoW arenas and be like, okay, you can't change your armor loadout or your weapon loadout once you're in the game.
I can see that.
Yeah, that to stop people from trying to counter each other mid game. Same, that'd be the equivalent of pretty much in League of Legends, you can't change your champion mid game or anything like that. At least I don't think you can.
No, but I do know the customization, goes almost as deep as Destiny in League, where you can pick your runes and stuff. I'm by no means a professional League player. I still play against bots, but I know that different runes will activate different passive abilities and stuff like that, or it cools down your ultimate move and stuff like that. So
the equivalent of changing your spec essentially.
Yeah. So I guess would your class have to be locked in? Could you switch?
Yeah, I would say that if you're doing competitive Destiny, you go in with one loadout and then you can't change. I would probably even make it go far as say you can't change your subclass. You can change individual skills in your subclass maybe, but not your weapons or anything like that. You go in as a gunslinger, you're staying a gunslinger. You can't suddenly go blade dancer because
you can't change your exotic armor piece or weaponry or anything like that too. I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it to go that far, honestly. I don't mind seeing people change up their guns or whatever to counter stuff. The only thing I'd like to see is once you select an exotic, you have to stick with it. That way you don't see people using last word and then switching to truth once the heavy weapon comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So I think we're all pretty much in agreement that Destiny could be competitive in the PvP side. The foundation of the game is built. We just need to get the ladder systems, Bungie on board, and get another governing body kind of in there. Do you guys think that we could actually do it for PvE? World of Warcraft was my other huge game, and there's actually a huge competitive side to the PvE side of the game there. You have people fighting to get world firsts of boss kills, and then you also have people fighting to get world firsts of challenge modes, essentially really, really difficult dungeons or strikes to run. You have people doing individual activities like how quickly can I solo this one thing. There's a lot of other things that can be competitive, I think, aside from PvP. Do you think that could also translate well to Destiny?
Most definitely.
I recently I was how do I go about this? I was, I guess, competing against my friend Tifu recently for the world's fastest solo Crota's End raid. And he is not currently able to compete, but I'm currently reigning champ with a time of 12 minutes and 11 seconds.
Jesus.
I am kind of waiting for him to come back and beat that because I do think it is still beatable. And I'm sure that he has got the skills to do it. But I think that speedrunning, at least in Crota's End, is probably the biggest PvE competition that exists. Vault of Glass, I feel, is a little bit worse for that because you're held back so much by the way the confluxes and oracles are presented to you. You can't really speed up them by shooting them faster. It doesn't change the timing of it. So you pretty much have 20 minutes locked in that part, regardless of how good of a player you are and how good your teamwork is. But as far as world firsting certain things, well, I can definitely see why it was a big thing in World of Warcraft, but I think that's because the expansions were so much bigger. There's so much more content added, whereas in this game, when there's a new raid, it's literally the normal mode for Crota's End was released, and then some team beat it, and there's nothing else to really talk about because it's Crota's End. That's all there is for the moment. And I guess it makes it hard for it to hype it up and for teams to have a really meaningful purpose behind going for those world firsts and for it to be very competitive when there's literally one event every 3 months, and when it does happen, there's not a whole lot of hype behind the team that actually gets it. I literally could not tell you exactly the team that beat hard mode Crota's End first. I know it was a team of Titans with the Helm of State 4T bubble. Oh, I could actually. I'm lying. It's one and done. One and done did it, and it was insane. They did it in 27 minutes. But I guess what I'm getting at is it's very easy to gloss over those achievements just because they're so few and far between.
They happen very quickly too. I mean, like I was trying to go for world first, normal Crota and hard mode, and within 4 hours or so, after normal mode was released, I think it had already been cleared, and we were like, well, okay, well maybe we'll try when hard mode comes out, and then like we really geared up to try to do hard mode, and we got to Crota at the same time, one and updated, but then we encountered wipes and stuff.
Yeah. I forgot about that. That's definitely true too. Like it does need to be probably 5 times more difficult if they want to make it really competitive too. Because if it's supposed to be really competitive, there, it's going to need to be extremely inaccessible. Really, at the end of the day.
They could do that with skulls, with modifiers. You know, if they just allowed us to add modifiers to these things, like even missions, regular strikes, and the raids, we could make them very difficult with those modifiers.
I think what World of Warcraft ended up doing was they have like the absolute baseline easiest one to run, which was the Raid Finder version, which would be the equivalent of queuing up for the raid. And like imagine doing Crota with a pub group, but then like ogres didn't come out. There wasn't an ogre phase. Okay. So that would be the equivalent of the Raid Finder version there. And then there would be the normal mode, which we all know and love. And then they would have the hard mode, which is actually insanely hard, like way harder than what the current one is. Like maybe after hard mode, Crota would be have the insanity of like having an ogre phase after every time you down Crota, or something like that. Just something that really, really sets the pace for it being difficult.
They could also bump the level cap up much higher than they do. I know that a team beat hard mode on a team of all level 30s, which goes to show that a good team can beat Crota 3 levels under leveled, which is like 50% damage reduction or something bigger than that. It's crazy.
It's huge.
Being 3 levels under, that would definitely be an achievement. That would require some really good teamwork and communication, because you can't stagger enemies when you're that far down, and you need orbs and that sort of thing. And killing Crota would require just a ton of effort from the sword bearer, because you take for granted that it takes 18 swings when you're 1 level under. If you were 3 levels under, it'd probably take 36 swings or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an arbitrary number, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's accurate.
It'd probably around 30-ish swings to take out Crota. I already don't want to do that.
My finger's getting tired just from hitting that button.
So I think we've established here that like the raids, it would be very difficult to make them competitive without, changing the very nature of the raids themselves by making them way more difficult or something like that. Do you think what we have to do to make like the strikes and stuff into a competitive thing? Like basically what I'm going at, challenge modes in World of Warcraft are they take the equivalent of strikes and then make them raid level difficulty. So the mobs are all 3 levels higher than you. Your gear doesn't scale at all. It would be the equivalent of going in there with like all your gear at level 20, all your stats are reduced. It's really, really difficult. And it's all based on times. Like you get no rewards from running it until you get like a certain level on all of them. And then you get like a small little reward for doing that, and then the rewards go up based on how quickly you've cleared all of them as a whole.
That sounds like it'd be fun as long as they kept it around for more than a week.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree there.
I think I feel like it would be really easy just to put up like a leaderboard at the tower, and you could see like the fastest times.
That'd be great. That'd be a huge addition.
Mm-hmm. And maybe there was like a vendor type of thing where you could create your own strike mission with modifiers and stuff like that, for like say Winter's Run, and you put void damage on and light switch and stuff like that, and then you set like some ridiculous goal for like time to like run through it, and then if you get under that goal, you have like a chance at like a legendary engram or something like that. But I think you guys are, definitely on the right track with PvE is just as big, if not bigger, than PvP in this game.
Definitely.
I feel like there's more players in PvE.
I agree with that. I feel like it's because of like the reward system too, but I feel like this game offers, such a huge change of pace to other first-person shooter games. Like even Call of Duty has, their little loot bags now. And I think that, really we're looking at what the future of like first-person games will be like, with like the Division and stuff coming out. I really feel like these semi-open world first-person shooters with, the PvP multiplayer attached, is going to be a large majority of what games will be coming out in the future. I still think like games like Battlefield and Battlefront, when it comes out at the end of the year and stuff like that, you have your solid multiplayer FPS titles. But I feel that when raids come out, I remember watching Prime Guard when they streamed, when they were trying to beat the Vault of Glass for the first time and stuff, and like Twitch was full of people, trying to beat it and everything. And I saw like, guys that like I grew up playing Call of Duty with on there, playing Destiny and stuff, and like how frustrated everybody was getting and stuff. But like it still got beat within that day, and all that hype, is gone within, 2 days of the raid being beaten. It's a huge to-do. Bungie says congratulations and everything like that, and then it's gone. That team, unless you put together a string of winning, world's first in every raid from here on out, that team is, by and large part, forgotten by the average Destiny player and viewer.
Didn't Bungie say, like, back in the beta and stuff that they were gonna, quote-unquote, like, make some sort of monument to the players that first defeat the raid or something like that? I very vividly remember them saying that.
They said a lot of stuff, though.
Yeah, I remember they said it was like the team will be like remembered.
Yeah.
With something dedicated to them. And I remember everybody thinking that they're gonna put up like a statue of a Titan in the little the garden, whatever area of the tower, when you first get down there. There should be monuments. Like, I feel like they have such a huge living world that, the tower needs to be, a representative of that, because with all the extensions and apps and stuff where you don't even have to like go to the tower hardly to get gear and stuff from your vault, and I know people have been trying to figure out how to do bounties and stuff, like the tower by and large is almost becoming obsolete.
Yeah.
I will say that they do need to do something to like increase the social experience of the tower, but I think it's also limited due to the nature of how like you can only go into the tower and there can only be 16 people there. How much of a social experience can you really have in the tower when there's only 16 people that can possibly be there at one time?
I think with adding the voice channels and stuff, like they hear everybody complaining and making suggestions and stuff like that. But I feel like adding seasons, like the tree will change color or something. I feel like there's just little opportunities that could, just change the entire atmosphere. But
the leaderboard thing was brilliant. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and
I would go check that thing constantly. Trying to get on there for like the weekly nightfall or the daily. They could do a daily leaderboard for the daily mission, and then of course for the raids.
And I mean, how would they? And this is just like a arbitrary thought, but like, do you show both? Is there a leaderboard for PlayStation, a leaderboard for Xbox, a leaderboard for both? Are all 4 consoles separated? I feel like the opportunities to add in numbers, because at the end of the day, what do people love? Statistics. People want to see their name next to that number 1 spot. Maybe with the Nightfall, your face is on fire, with a blue flame. Maybe make modifiers. Say you get the fastest... even with the Nightfall, say you get the fastest Nightfall for the week. Instead of blue flames, you get like a gold flame or something. I just feel like there's like really simple texture things that they can modify that add so much more to the game.
Like in World of Warcraft, if you got the number 1 spot on the challenge modes, you had a title for as long as you had that number one spot. So what?
So as soon as somebody beat you,
so
you lost
me
it?
me and my friends, like we would go just like take all the number one spots once we got really trained, and then all those players, like, they had forgotten how to play the game essentially and couldn't get their titles back, and then we held them till the end of the expansion, and then we had them forever.
That's awesome. But see, like, I feel like, looking back at games like that, like, it's almost like you were spoiled. I know the argument comes out that WoW's been out for a decade and stuff, and they've built on their foundation and stuff like that, but I mean, Blizzard and Bungie share the same
Parent company.
Yeah,
Activision.
so I feel like, it's not that hard to send an email or call up somebody in Blizzard's office and be like, what are your thoughts on this? Should we add this? Was this well received when you guys, like, I know the game's only been out for, like, 6 months now?
Yeah.
And everybody likes instant gratification and change now and things like that.
I will say Bungie has been doing an amazing job as far as, like, getting patches and fixes out. As far as adding content, they could be doing a little bit better on that.
House of Wolves is a big moment for that.
Yeah.
I think they're either going to make a lot of people really happy, or they're going to lose a lot of players with House of Wolves.
Do you think that's why we haven't seen the trials and stuff yet? Is that they're saving these things?
I'm guessing so. Like, I imagine right now we're basically kind of floundering. We're just treading water until the storm that is House of Wolves can actually get onto us. Because
the Queen's Bounty stuff, it would be perfect to bring that out like a week or two before House of Wolves drops.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it start to get in a little bit of story, like take another page from World of Warcraft. Before a big expansion would come out, about 2 to 3 weeks before that, there would be a huge world event going on. Like, for Cataclysm, the quote-unquote elements were enraging, and, they were elemental invasions on all the main cities. So like, you had these things that people were remembering, and not necessarily they would have to do that for Destiny, but it's something as simple as bringing the Queen's Wrath event back like 2 weeks before House of Wolves comes in to kind of build hype. People would be like, oh, Queen's Wrath is back. Oh, and, House of Wolves is coming another week after that. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and put my Destiny disc back in, load up the game.
That's right. Have her giving away level 32 gear so that everybody can be up to that level for House of Wolves, and looking a little bit different than everybody who's been playing the game for the last 3 months. I think it could be really exciting. But I think Bungie's still learning these things. I don't really think they knew how this game was going to be received and how much time people were going to be putting into it. That's shown with, they've said as much, but it's also shown with the size of the vault. It's shown with the amount of content that's there. They just didn't realize that people were just going to be sucking so much time into it.
Yeah. And I mean, I know they talk about the sleepless nights and stuff that they had, thinking of what to add to the game and stuff. And if people were going to I feel like that should be a huge motivator, like seeing how much time people are sinking into your game. And, their one complaint is they want more. They want more content and stuff like that.
That's a good complaint to have.
That is that's, I'm really on the, I really believe that they're just saving that stuff for House of Wolves. I feel like they'll throw in, trials, and you'll have a new raid, and, you guys, have all this new content and stuff, and it'll hold us over until Comet or whatever, that's going to be. And they're having the same dialogue that we're having, like, what can we add? How long does it take to add? What do we have to change? And I know that when you push out, at least on Xbox, I know the patches, it's not free. It's not.
I think they've actually changed that a little bit. At least
really?
That's what I'm hearing. I don't think it costs as much as it used to, but there's still the whole process of it getting I can't think of the word, like certified.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, it takes like a week and stuff, before the patch goes live. That you're right, where it gets like certified. And I mean, it's got to be that patch has to be tested within the game world and stuff to make sure it's stable. I know I listened to you guys' last podcast and you were talking about the vault space stuff, or maybe that was the one before that, I don't know. But you guys were talking about vault space and how like the 360 and PS3 don't have enough memory to show the stats and stuff when you would compare them. And I mean, I work in IT and stuff, and I kind of understand like the different layers to how like software and hardware works and stuff, but stuff for like changing the color of the flame around your head, it doesn't seem like too many things would clash. I'm sure you would get like a glitch where your head
properly,
doesn't show
it shouldn't
up.
be too difficult. Just change the hex code.
Yep. So like, I mean, I don't know. I hope that the content is expanded upon. I had a PlayStation 4, and like I took a week off of work when it came out, and like I played that game religiously. And then in like 2 weeks before Dark Below came out, I started really working with the pro team I'm with and stuff. And everybody has an Xbox, because Call of Duty and stuff. And I was like, I want to play with you guys and all that jazz. And they were like, yeah, we play Destiny sometimes too. And I'm like, okay, I'll go pick it up and stuff. And like, just like the difference, and like the game doesn't, I don't know if it looks different from console to console. I feel like it was a little bit more pretty on PS4 and stuff. And
It is. It's because we have Hawkmoon.
yeah, that's what I tell. Every time we go, every time I raid with like a random group and stuff, they're like, "Oh, I hope I get the Mythic class," or I want Black Hammer at the end of Crota. I'm like, I want Hawkmoon. That's what I'm aiming for. And people be like, oh, "That's out," and stuff, and I'll be like, "Yeah, man, it's totally out," on PlayStation.
Slayer, you've been a little bit quiet here. You did have one or two questions you wanted me to ask you. When do you think House of Wolves is is actually going to come out? I think that's what this conversation was kind of geared towards at the start of it.
I don't actually have any idea when it's going to come out. I've heard rumors of I heard rumors that it was going to be in March, but March is obviously passed. I've heard rumors that it might be in May, but if March passed, I don't see why May couldn't too. Until I get an official word from Bungie, I'm really not going to have any confidence that they're going to release it. But I do think that they know full well with the release of it that they need to keep all the people who got season passes for the game's interest.
Yeah.
Because all the people who are pretty much committed to playing House of Wolves are going to be the people who will suck everybody else back in if it's actually really good content. It can't lose people's interest as fast as Crota's End did, I guess is what I'm getting at. Not that Crota's End was necessarily bad, but it certainly doesn't live up to the Vault of Glass raid and the content that came on the disc. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen plenty of complaints online about how, oh my god, the Nightfall is freaking Omnigul again, and oh wow, the Daily is the Awakening again. It's just like they forced the DLC missions in Strike, and it's just nobody appreciates the content because it's just not. It doesn't actually add very much variety.
Yeah. I haven't actually done the daily mission in a solid 2 months, maybe. Yeah, but probably more than 2 months because it's always those same 2 missions. And it's just so boring to run those 2 missions.
Probably make it so there's actually an incentive to do it. Because as far as I can tell, you get like a chance at a legendary engram and some experience for armor if you need to level it. I don't even remember the other rewards. I guess I'm probably not really at the end of Destiny that actually has a whole lot of rewards to go for at this point, but I do feel like even if I had less stuff than I do, I still wouldn't really bother with the daily unless I felt like I wanted to level up a piece of gear and the daily wasn't something ridiculous like the Awakening.
The sad thing is, like, the daily doesn't apply to those, the daily doesn't apply XP to your guns, only to your armor.
The thing that actually takes forever to level. Like, people are leveling guns far more often than they're leveling up their armor. You get level 32 on a set of gear and you're like, done. And you don't bother leveling gear again unless you get a new exotic piece for the most part. But with guns, every new gun you get, you want to level to see how it plays. So you'd think that they would make it apply to guns, but I guess for whatever reason they just decided against that. But I was thinking about House of Wolves is, as far as actually keeping it entertaining, I think they're definitely going to have to prevent it from being soloable because, and this might just be more of a personal problem for me than for a lot of other players, but the fact that Crota's End is so easy to solo makes it somewhat tedious to play with other players, because if I go into the Abyss it is actually the most efficient way to complete it for me to say, you guys sit here, I'm going to run through the abyss in 3.5 minutes.
Yep.
I have the same experience with
Okay,
you,
we're at the bridge. Everybody die so I can kill the ogres. And just it's literally faster for me to do it alone than to actually go in with a group. And that is horrendous raid design in some respects. Having a full team should speed things up, not slow them down.
That's too bad, too, because the Abyss is really fun when you have a full group trying to get through it together. But it's a bit monotonous when you're just kind of going through it by yourself and your raid group is just kind of waiting at the beginning area for you to finish it. And same with the bridge crossing. It's the way it's designed is everybody kind of has a chance to shine. Everybody has to get that sword. Everybody has to cross the bridge and kill the gatekeeper. But the way we all solo it or cheese it, it's just, one person basically can do the whole thing and everybody else is just kind of waiting. It makes the whole thing boring too.
Yep. I mean, they did try to fix that to some extent. Like, they fixed lamp launching, and they fixed the bridge to some extent so you couldn't just directly fly over and avoid a death barrier. And they made it but what they effectively did was just make it a little bit harder. You can blink directly from one end of the bridge to the other.
Yep.
And the abyss, you can still jump up the wall, and they've openly acknowledged that that's something that can still be done. And I feel like they should have prevented those things from being possible, because that does suck the joy out of the raid. And I feel like those would be relatively easy fixes if they just took a little bit more strict of an approach to it. Like, I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, but if they made it so you just can't jump with the sword on the bridge encounter, and if in the abyss your weight never goes below 1, then both of those things would be fixed. I mean, the sword thing might be difficult to code in, I'm sure, but having weight never go below 1, surely that can't be that difficult of a fix, and it would really curb the whole abyss encounter being cheesed all the time. And the abyss was fun on the very first playthrough, because we thought we had to go through all of the lamps together, and we thought that we had to go every single one, 19 of them, and no skipping or shortcuts or any of that. And we thought we all had to stand on the plate to build the bridge.
Yep.
And it's just like, the more you understand the mechanics, the more it's like, wow, this is just easy. And easy is not the word that should come to mind when you're doing a raid, pretty much ever.
Yeah. It's going to be so hard for them in the future to kind of limit that stuff, because the Guardians themselves are so powerful. They have so many abilities that to restrict them is it's tough.
Yeah. Actually, what my thoughts on this is that there's actually some metagaming that people are trying to do with the heavy ammo glitch, involving both having no primary weapon and with the icebreaker thing that makes it drop heavy every time and that sort of thing. People are trying to find ways to theoretically beat the Conflux part of Vault of Glass and the Oracle part of Vault of Glass alone, and Atheon has already been soloed, and the door opening part has already been soloed. So I'm not sure if it's been soloed post-patch. I think that people have still found ways to do it, but what the end result here is that the only part of the raid, or the only part of any Destiny raid content, which is yet to not even be theoretically soloed as far as I am aware, is the Gatekeeper part in the Vault of Glass raid. And the only reason it's not soloable is because you can't hold 2 relics at once. You can't go into the portal alone because you'll get killed by Lost in Time, so that's also an issue. But even if you could go into one portal alone, there's no way in hell you would ever get both of those relics out. So for that reason, that is the only theoretically impossible to solo part of either raid that they've made so far. So what I'm thinking with House of Wolves they really need to do, and it's probably too late in development to make a call like this, but what they really ought to do is put in 2 relics, because that's going to force teamwork, which is actually really important. The cleanse mechanic on the relic is a lot better than anything the sword does, in my opinion, as far as team orientation goes, but that's a completely different story. At the end of the day, they just need to design a raid that is going to require teamwork, because actually cooperating with people is what makes the raid interesting. When you're each doing your own thing, it's not going to hold people's attention as long, especially just because when you can do things alone, it makes it feel easy.
Agreed. I definitely like that statement about adding 2 relics definitely increases the teamwork, which kind of is the point of the raid, and it does highlight why the Gatekeeper portion of the Atheon fight is my favorite encounter as far as raids go across Destiny. It's because there's so many things happening at once, everyone has a part to play, and it requires teamwork. It feels like a raid should feel.
Agree completely. I also think that if they were to make strikes more raid-esque, they would need to put in some mechanics comparable to that.
Like in the story mission in the Rasputin's lair thing. Like when we first ran it, the dialogue that was coming through, it sounded like they were trying to teach us raid mechanics, because we had just run through the raid, or we had attempted to. We got to Crota, and then we heard, Omnigal's here, silence her screams. And we're like, oh, this might be a mechanic associated with the raid. No, it's just a piece of dialogue. We'll shoot.
Just some arbitrary errors telling you things that you can't even do.
Yeah, we can't even do it. It's like, well, how are we supposed to... Are we going to die if we don't silence her screams? I'm trying to, shoot through the door and everything.
Yeah, that would have been cool. If you had to do something to make her stop screaming, and that would make enemies stop, overwhelmingly spawning, that would be an improvement.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, going back to something you guys were saying earlier about leaderboards, I think part of the reason that they don't have mechanics like that in Strikes, and part of the reason they don't have leaderboards, is they want to they want everything to be accessible. And they don't want to flaunt really good players in front of more casual players. They don't want someone to go to the tower and be like, wow, someone beat Crota's End in freaking 9 minutes. I sure am not that good at Crota's End. They just want it to be their own personal little legend where they feel like they did it pretty good because they did it in 2.5 hours, and hey, that's good enough. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that system necessarily, but it does pretty much shun hardcore gamers.
I prefer a run that takes 2.5 hours over a run that takes 9 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. In a raid, no doubt.
That's why I still like doing Vault of Glass over Crota. I feel like I know it's supposed to reflect, the lore of what each faction is like. The Hive are super erratic, and there's a bunch of them, and you're supposed to be overwhelmed. But with the Vex, it's supposed to be more methodical. And I really, I never got to play WoW or anything like that. My first I had a PlayStation 2 and stuff like that, and then I went to college and played Call of Duty 4, and ever since then I was hooked to first person shooters and stuff like that. I played Skyrim, and I loved Skyrim when I was in college. I put thousands of hours into just the character creation screen. But I feel when you talk about, oh, this is how fast you do it in 9 minutes or whatever, to beat Crota and stuff like that, that's not fun. It is, literally running through either, I don't know if it's you running from the thralls and stuff like that, where it's you're so overwhelmed that you can't possibly kill everything until you get to Crota, or if it's, because I've done the Crota run probably it's been over 10 times, but it's just not, I don't have fun. I don't have fun doing it. I don't have fun running through the abyss.
When you were saying the Hive are erratic and numerous, and then there's the Vex that are more methodical, you actually reminded me of a point that I really love to make with regard to kind of a flaw in raid design with Crota's End, as far as I'm concerned, which is that with the Vex and the Conflux defense part, you are pretty much forced to stand right next to the Conflux and to precision shot as many enemies as you can and to keep yourself safe by attacking the enemies. You have to kill things offensively to defend the Confluxes, which is fun to do. It makes you aim and it makes you work as a team and get each other's backs, which is a lot of fun. But when you're playing in Crota's End, literally your goal for about 80% of the raid is to avoid as many enemies as possible. You go into the abyss and you dash past all the thralls. You go into the bridge encounter and you shoot as few things as you have to stay alive. And with most cheeses in place, you killed the bare minimum number of enemies to get the ogres to spawn and move on. When you get to the Shrieker Call, or the Shrieker Hallway, you kill the Shriekers and say, screw the thralls, I don't care about them. When you get to the Death Singer, you kill the wizards, you kill the Shriekers, you kill Irya. You do not focus on any of the other enemies in the arena. You the entire raid. And then when you get to Crota too, and that's really the kicker to me, you get to Crota, you clear out the rooms next to you, and then you fight Crota. And that's it. And there's the enemies in the boomer towers, and you're stun lock them with Black Hammer, don't kill them because that spawns a wizard. So you don't want to kill the boomers. And you see all the thralls on the ground, and it's they're not worth killing either because they're just going to respawn a billion times. So, and you can't even kill the gatekeeper, so there's an enemy that you're forced to arbitrarily just avoid for however long. And like literally through the entire raid, you're just avoiding enemies. And that's not fun. You don't want to avoid enemies. You don't play the first-person shooter to run in fear with your camo abilities and your radiance and your defender bubble.
Do you think that they should add in like an incentive to kill all of them, or is that supposed to be how that raid is designed?
According to the developers, they wanted Crota's End to feel like an action movie, which is very different in my mind from just a pure chase scene for an entire raid, which is what it comes across as when you're not fighting enemies to me. And the reason I refer to it as a design flaw is that I don't think they intended you to not fight enemies. I think the intention for the design of the Abyss was that you were going to run through and you were going to need to kill the thralls in order to progress without dying. And I think they wanted the Abyss or the bridge encounter to require 6 people so that you had to hold down the plates and send people across in an orderly fashion, and you were going to have to defend the plates to live, comparable to the confluxes where you need to hold a position and enemies rush you while you're holding it. I think those were what they were trying to do. And then I think in the Yip fight, kind of similarly, I don't know how they could have possibly missed it with the Crota fight to where you don't fight very many enemies at all on purpose. But I feel like they just completely neglected to consider the fact that once people understood the metagame and focused on only the key enemies, that's all that they were going to fight. And it takes away the action movie aspect of it completely and makes it more of a puzzle. Whereas the Vex is something like an action movie, except that it's very slow paced because you aren't actually like progressing forwards constantly. Instead, you're standing in one place fighting for your life and limb the entire time, which is, in my mind, more action oriented than running. But yeah, I do feel confident in calling it a design flaw because it doesn't seem like the intention was to keep you from fighting enemies. But with the developed strategies, that's what the best gameplay pretty much dictates you are going to do.
My guess is as Bungie moves forward and learns from kind of these past mistakes is that, they're going to stop putting ledges that the whole fire team can stand on to fire at Crota. They're going to start putting bumpers up around the Templar so he can't just fall up off a ledge. They're going to figure this stuff out. They're going to figure out how everybody exploits these things. And we'll find that they're less and less possible.
I think that's why House of Wolves isn't out yet, in part at least, and we haven't heard any word about it. I don't think they want to get our hopes up before they know they can release it, and I don't think they're going to feel confident they can release it until they know that that kind of stuff isn't going to happen. Because even Crota did have the lag switch cheese.
Oh, yeah, that was a bad one. I forgot about that one, jeez.
God.
Thank goodness they got rid of it at least.
Yeah.
I wonder, with the Fallen and like as opposed to like the Vex and the Hive and stuff, I know that the placeholder for the raid is called the Arena, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, if that's just in a name or if there's actually going to be is this like a waved type of, enemy thing where like, teamwork will actually... Because I remember when it first came out, I wanted to be a Defender Titan because I thought we're going into the raid. I feel like a lot of people don't want to be Titans. I feel like a lot of people don't want to play that support role. I wanted to actually feel like I mattered, like in helping the team and stuff. I would really like to see like a raid where it actually mattered what you went into. I know that, you can do anything as any class and all that stuff is like an important piece about the game. But I would really like to see like, teamwork matter, like the Templar and everything like that. I really miss that feeling of going in because I remember like the first like few times I did that run and like killing the oracles and stuff and learning it and being on the edge of your seat, like did we get all of them? Did we get all of them? Did we get all of them? How much health does the Templar have and stuff like? It's just I miss that. I miss the teamwork and stuff.
But that you're gonna lose that with repetition on anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't, the design of it doesn't matter. Is once you do it 24 times, it's going to become automatic for your entire fire team.
Well, I can tell you, like, from the high-end raid experiences in WoW, the teamwork never goes away if the content is hard enough. And when running challenge modes, that was essentially, like, what I did was always challenge modes. and we had a core team of 3 people, a tank, a healer, and then I was the damage dealer. And we 3 were like working so in tandem with each other, but we still had to do teamwork like the entire time.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, I wish we had that.
Yeah.
If they made it so, I think the problem with the classes as they're set up is that the only time they really distinguish themselves from one another in any significant way is when they use their super every 5 minutes.
Yeah, supers and melees pretty much. And the melee is not really that different anyway.
But the melee you can't use the melee to support your team. Like
Yeah.
the only way you can support your team is with like the defender bubble or with the radiant skin perk. And like hunters can't even do anything to support their teammates, literally.
Hey, we can go invisible and res you when you die.
See ya, suckers. I'm out of
Not
here.
in hard. That kind of gets defeated in hard mode where you can't res people. I wish there was like I was thinking of like ways to like make raids, more like team oriented and stuff like that. But I thought, how cool would it be if like when Atheon teleports you, you're basically 2 teams, one on the outside and one on the inside. What if there was like an aspect to the raid where there was a fork in the road and like one group had to go one way and one group had to go the other way, and the only people that had communication with one another was like ones that were designated the fire team leader, and like you had to relay the information back and forth between the leaders and stuff. Like if there were like portals that you had to open or something like that, like that would be intense. I don't know if that's applicable to this game or anything, but
that would be the end of LFG raid groups.
You say that, but like again in World of Warcraft, I'm gonna get tired of saying that eventually. There was an encounter that involved splitting the raid up into 2 teams, and you each had to do kind of this encounter where you would break open boxes, mobs would come out, yada yada yada, and you had to do it all within a set time limit, or else you all died.
It's not the breaking up the raid groups that concerns me; it's the communication aspect.
And that's the thing is that
people in LFG would actually have to talk.
Yeah, that's the thing. In Raid Finder, that encounter was available for Raid Finder. Even teams that had 0 communication were still able to complete it. They're just very small visual cues, like a bar at the bottom of the screen to show the progress of the other team. That's all that it took, for the most part. And you could easily do that in a pug group. It was actually pretty interesting to see that happen. So I do think that a fight like that would easily be doable in Destiny. Even all it would take is just those small visual cues to really help accomplish that.
Bungie, please.
I do. We're nearing on like an hour here. I do want to get to one of the community questions that we had last time. We weren't able to go over it because I think this was actually a pretty big community discussion question. I wanted to devote some time to it just itself. I forget the guy that asked it. I'm really sorry about that again, but I'll just go ahead and relay the question. The factions really seem to be missing from the storyline. New Monarchy, Dead Orbit, and Future War Cult. I'd really like to see other story missions or specific bounties for them. Story especially, because without looking up the Grimoire or the Wiki, there's no way to really tell what's going on and who they are or what they want. I also find it strange that when Dead Orbit needs salvage from this area in a patrol mission, when I finish it, I get reputation for whatever I'm wearing at the time and not Dead Orbit. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on this, my ideas, and perhaps your own take. I'll go ahead and say the second part of the question there, as far as like Dead Orbit needs salvage from this area, I know why they changed that particular aspect of it. It's because if you needed to grind a specific rep or faction, they probably didn't want to make it as dependent on the random number generator.
That'd be brutal.
Yeah, because that'd be brutal. It's like I need 31 Dead Orbit rep. That means I need to get two patrol missions done. I'll be good. And 2 hours later, and you've only been doing New Monarchy, and the other one because that's all that's been popping up for you.
Yeah.
So I understand why they changed that. But the first part of the question, like the complete almost absence of the factions, they just to someone that just came into the game at the first part, or that just came into the game, didn't read the Grimoire, didn't go to the wiki, didn't watch Wally's videos on anything. the factions, they're just vendors to us with like really good voice actors behind them.
And facial hair.
Yeah, and great facial hair, which why don't we have it?
I'm praying.
Yeah, so what are you guys' thoughts on that? Like, on just like the factions as a whole, do you guys think they could be implemented in other ways in Destiny? I know in like PvP, we have technically those different game modes are for different factions, if I remember correctly. It's been so long since I actually read the text on them.
But it doesn't actually do anything. It's kind of just flavor text.
Yeah.
Yep. How crazy would it be if when you did a patrol mission and is like, dead orbit needs salvage from this area, and then you completed it wearing your future war cult, I don't know, cloak or whatever, you got reputation for both dead orbit and future war cult. Wouldn't that be crazy?
That'd be nice.
What if it was like cut in half? That way you know, half and half. You do a mission for them, and then your rep for future war cult, you know.
Yeah, nope, I'd rather get double.
It can't be that easy.
Yes, it can.
Nothing can
I did the Nightfall this week so I can get 6 extra experience towards my 2,500. Let me just level this up so I can get another Ascendant Energy and the Shard and a commendation of some sort that I'm never going to use. Like, what? You spend so much time leveling the stupid things up, and then it gives you complete garbage. So why not just be a little tiny bit more generous with what rewards you get when you actually level it up, or make it easier to level up at least?
I'd go full Satan mode. Like, if you're wearing a future war cult thing and you complete a dead orbit bounty, you get docked off reputation for both of them.
Ooh,
you're a bad person. Nobody likes you.
See, I think stuff like I think that's how you build into the story and the lore, though. Like
that is true. But for gameplay's sake, that would be horrible. That's like taking a page out of Bloodborne and Dark Souls, where it
already takes so long. I've put countless hours into this game, and I'm really low levels on, like, everything.
Yeah.
I think if you just abandon an objective from one of the people, like if you're wearing your Future War Cult shader and get a dead orbit one, and you immediately abandoned it, and then spit on the ground, then you get a lot of experience for Future War Cult. They're like, dang, this guy's, like, super loyal.
The factions, though, they could implement a lot of things with the factions. They could do, like, faction wars inside the Crucible. They could even do like specific missions, you know, like if you are a member of New Monarchy, you get access to these 3 missions. And once you switch over to Dead Orbit, you get 3 new missions that are just for Dead Orbit members.
That I like that. What if you choose a faction kind of starting out, and then once you get your rep up to like say level 10 or something, you get like some new story missions.
That'd be great.
Or just something focused towards that faction, so you can start to learn more about them without having to go into the Grimoire or the wiki. So like you kind of get into their inner circle, so you know why Dead Orbit is trying to leave Earth and try to leave our solar system.
That would do 2 things too, right? Is it would add content like later in the game, which is where really the game lacks. But it also would add story to factions.
To the absence of the story.
Yeah. It would put a story in this game.
If you guys were like me, you know, before the game came out, you were looking at, you know, all the different like the 7 Seraphs and stuff like that, like things that aren't even in the game right now. And like, I remember debating with people, you know, are you going to be in Dead Orbit? Well, you know, I like, you know, black and white, you know, I think that would be like a cool shader to have and everything. Or I feel like there was a lot more behind it. And, you know, due to all the different constraints that they had and getting the game out and stuff, I'm sure it's somewhere on somebody's hard drive. The secret behind why Dead Orbit wants to leave. And
if I remember right from one of the Grimoire, it's like they know Earth is doomed, so instead of trying to stay and defend it, they want to go out into the galaxy. But if I also remember correctly, the galaxy is kind of surrounded by the darkness, so...
And it's just like, I mean, the future war cult EXO, she's insane. Like, just listening to her talk about dying in war and all that stuff, like, I really feel like there was, you know, a backstory to all that. And then, like, when you guys are talking about like the different playlists and stuff, like Dead Orbit wants you to reclaim territory and stuff like that, or like playing Control and stuff like that, like maybe have those game modes have a higher drop percentage for like, the weapons from that faction and stuff. Like you'll be
That'd be cool.
rewarded. Simple little things. Once again,
Or if you
simple.
ran that playlist with like Dead Orbit gear on, then you get more experience. Kind of like how Iron Banner works.
Exactly. I wish they would have put more into the factions, and I guess with like maybe Common and stuff we see, like building onto that, or maybe even House of Wolves. Who knows? House of Wolves could be absolutely amazing, and they just shove all this content in there, and they're like, "Thanks for staying and waiting. Here you go." I know.
I'm gonna calm down there
Slayer was
before you get
talking
someone's
about-
hopes up.
Say again.
I'm gonna calm down there before you get someone's hopes up.
I know, right? Mine. I like to be optimistic, but
No. Stay really pessimistic. So then, when like nothing happens, you're never disappointed, and then when something good happens, then you're surprised.
set the bar low.
Set the bar low, man. My glass of water is currently. Oh God, it's actually empty. Never mind.
Yeah, you can't really call that half full. They did fix the Iron Banner. They fixed the Iron Banner primary weapon bounty. They finally decided that maybe auto rifles were outdated now that they nerfed them to
Nerfed them
oblivion.
into the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the sad things. Like, for one thing, I do kind of miss seeing auto rifles. And now, if I see someone using an auto rifle, I have to like double think, and I'm like, does this guy know something I don't? Is he?
They're not
really,
that bad.
Is he
You
really
can still
good with auto
succeed
rifles?
in the Crucible with
Yeah, you
Surus
can.
Regime. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
that bad.
But at the same time, like,
It's not that bad.
optimal.
That's definitely the weapon you want to wield.
I was about to say it's the Suros though. Like it's like the high rate of fire, low impact ones. You can't even think about using, or like even Necro. Like that gun is like the hardest gun to get in the game, and it's awful. And I just feel like
the other day, like I ran into someone with that, and they were godly. Like they every single one of those shots landed on my head. And let me tell you, that gun has a very quick time to kill if it's all precision shots. It was scary to go up against.
That's the thing. It's got a wicked high skill cap.
Yeah. I'd still rather just hit someone once in the head with Hawkmoon and all three things proc on them, and it's just great.
Yeah, that's fun.
I feel like realistically, even if you had perfect aim, it would be pretty much impossible to aim perfectly, regardless, while you're getting shot by someone else.
Yeah, true.
I think ultimately that's the direction they want auto rifles to kind of head in, though. Is they want them to be kind of much more close range than what the Surus Regime was getting used at. And they want to segment the ranges, like kind of auto rifles are close range, pulse rifles kind of that middle range, and then scout rifles are that longer range. And then as the game moves forward, I think we'll start seeing less high impact auto rifles and kind of more of the pulse rifles kind of get that Red Death kind of power.
Red Death is just really strong at the same time. Like it's scary in a skirmish match, seeing just a team with Red Death. Like if two of those guys hit you with a burst, you're dead.
I like the buff to pulse rifles in general a lot. The fact that you can actually get a 2-burst headshot relatively consistently is pretty nice. I'm pretty sure you can hit 2 of the bullets in the body and it'll still be a kill. I could be wrong, but at any rate, I definitely think that pulse rifles are actually something that you can consider using now, whereas before, if you were using a pulse rifle, it was just like, ha 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 ha, and then you kill them.
Yeah, the only one you could pretty much use was Red Death and 3 Little Words because of their rate of fire. And then Stranger's Rifle was still okay to use. But yeah, like, all the other ones were just ridiculous. And what's interesting is how pulse rifles now, like the high rate of fire ones, technically they're like the same rate of fire as auto rifles. Like they put more bullets out and they do more damage per bullet anyway than auto rifles. It is kind of weird.
I do like that there's variation, you know, like coming from like Call of Duty where every gun is, automatic and bullet hoses and stuff like that. I like seeing, like, that's kind of like why I liked World at War, because of like the rifles and stuff, were like semi-automatic. But like I love that personal opinion and preference. I like not seeing the Suros everywhere, Dr. Nope. I know you were talking about how you went up against the guy using the Necro, and like I played my first game in the Crucible today, where I played somebody with hard light. And, like, just hearing, like, the bullets come out of it. Like he did absolutely awful. He was the worst on the other team. He was terrible with it. But like just like I don't know, when he was close, you know, it was still kind of nerve wracking because you hear that continuous. But I like the variation. I do enjoy that, and I do like you know, it seems like I think it was Slayer who said that if you're a good PvP player, you use shotguns. And I do see, you know, like, you know, 4 out of the other 6 people on the other team, you know, will be rocking shotguns. But there's always, like, somebody with, like, patience and time in the back of the map, invisible or...
Yeah, hi, that's me.
But, like, the thing is, like, I don't get frustrated or mad, like, what I do with, like, Call of Duty, where, like... you're just continuously running into a spot to engage somebody. Like, there's always, like, that central point, and everybody just runs there, and it's repeated, you know, over and over again within that match. I feel like in the Crucible, it's got a lot going for it in the sense that it's the variation. And then there's, like, thousands of guns in this game, and people were like... I saw a post on Reddit that was talking about the I think it's like the LMG. Was it Xerxes that
The Xerxes C
like,
can 2-shot someone.
Yeah, and like it's what is that, uncommon or whatever?
Yeah, it's a green quality uncommon one, and you have to get the focus fire perk on it. That's the only one in the game that'll do it. I've been searching for one just to see how it plays.
But that's awesome. I had a rare hand cannon that was really good that I got. And, like, I used it until, like, I got a Fatebringer, just because Fatebringer is amazing. But
Yeah.
it's, I don't know. I would like to see more, like, in the rare weapons, because they add weapons in all the time. And cosmetic-wise, that Bengal scout rifle is gorgeous. I wish that there was, you know, like with Iron Banner, how you can re-roll perks and stuff. I almost wish there was a way that there was, like one column of perks that you could try to reroll.
All the stuff that we've been kind of talking about here about the Crucible, a lot of this was actually mentioned in our Why Can't the Crucible Move Forward article that we recently put out. So if any of you guys are listening out there, go check it out. But yeah, just to get you guys' individual thoughts, you can, we'll just go around the table here. What do you guys think that like we can do to actually move the Crucible forward? Because right now we're kind of stagnant. Right now we have the Iron Banner. You know, that's the only thing we have to look forward to. That's actually feasible to look forward to. Then we have, you know, whatever weapon changes they might put out. So we saw a little bit of shakeup come when they when they buffed pulse rifles and then nerfed everything else.
I would like to see map design that was more symmetrical more often. The one map that's symmetrical or the one map that I think is like purely symmetrical right now, as far as I can think, is Pantheon, and it's a map that is just corners everywhere, which is lame. I'd rather have some open areas where you actually have long-distance battles where having a scout rifle is a viable option compared with having a hand cannon or a shotgun all the time. I think that just a couple maps like that in the rotation would really mix things up a lot. I think if they took special ammo and made it spawn like heavy ammo in one playlist so that you can't actually just use your shotgun really except every few minutes, that would be cool. And they could have the special ammo drop off enemies you kill, because at that point there would not be very much of it. And it's not like it's overwhelmingly overpowered if there's just some special ammo on the ground, but it would make it so specials can't be used as primaries. I mean, a lot of people just run around and pick up special ammo and then pick up more special ammo, and there's no special ammo boxes on the ground because someone insists on running around with Pocket Infinity and using all their ammo like freaking crazy. I just wish that more skillful weapons were more rewarding. Like Meta Multi-Tool should have more applications in the Crucible, and other scout rifles like it should also have more applications in the Crucible.
Well, I'd like to just ask a quick question. When you play PvP, what are you normally running? Let's add that to the question as well.
What I used to love to do was snipers, because if I used like Predator's Revenge and got a cool multi-kill with it, I would feel like a badass. Because, I mean, sniping people in the face and getting triple kills from it, there's not really a whole lot that looks more skillful in any game. But what I've decided to do recently is that I'm really never going to be in the top PvP tier if I don't actually just use a shotgun like all the other good players are, because the shotgun just dominates the metagame currently. It's got too much range to be anything short of incredible, considering that even if it didn't have range, it would still be beast. So what I use is a Fellwinter's Lie with shot package and hammer forge and aggressive ballistics, because I'm a bastard.
Yep.
And it's got luck in the chamber too, so maybe you'll get unlucky if you're on the receiving end of that. And I use the last word because it seems like it's the just hands down best gun in PvP to me. Thorn is also arguable in some cases. Red Death is also arguable in some cases, but I feel like the last word is definitely the most versatile gun for someone that's an aggressive player, as I am. And then for my heavy, I use the Vinder Valedictorian because it has proximity and clown cartridge, which together means I can get 3 or 4 rockets that are really powerful with high blast radius and proximity explosions, which is really powerful. And I would use a Radagast Fury if I had gotten it too, because honestly, I'm just going to use whatever it takes to kill people, because nobody thinks you're cool when you lose with a sniper rifle. Everybody thinks you're a beast if you win with a shotgun, so might as well cater to the lowest common denominator. That is my usual loadout.
Unless someone's using like a final round Effordites as their sniper rifle, then I generally respect them if they're using a sniper rifle. Shotgun.
Agreed completely. I'll have to go on a tangent. People use those snipers. I hate them. There's no other word for it. It's like the entire fun of sniper rifles is actually aiming the gun and trying to get them in the face with a good shot over a long distance or even at close range, and just to actually aim the gun and feel cool about doing that. But then when you're using a final round sniper, it is worse than using a shotgun by far, because you're taking a gun that is noble and pristine and perfect and using it for just the most heinous of purposes. It is not okay, even a little bit. God, that annoys me.
I agree with that statement.
I really wish they hadn't let Effordites reroll into that. It drives me nuts.
We ran into a couple guys from Final Boss during the Iron Banner. It felt really good counter-sniping them with my LDR when a lot of them were running final round sniper rifles, so that felt good. But at the same time, it's like I'm seeing a lot of the higher-end player base, at least that I normally run into. A lot of them are still using just that final round sniper. I really hope Bungie...
That needs to go.
Can I ask how much you lost by that game?
The first game was actually insanely close, like 20,000 to 19,500.
Really? How many of them were using that sniper rifle?
I want to say at least 3 of them were using it.
Dang.
That's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
Yeah,
I've played against a team that was using them in skirmish, and just it's so annoying. It is.
It's even worse in the smaller playlists, like in twos and threes. If the whole other team's using final round, good luck. Just good luck doing anything.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, if shotguns dominate the metagame, then the sniper rifles are just one step beyond that with that final round. A whole team of people using them is just the only word that can be appropriately descriptive of that is obnoxious. It is just obnoxious. It is not skillful or clever. It is obnoxious.
Clever.
I will agree with you there. Let's move the conversation back to the Crucible thing. Briar, why can't the Crucible move forward? We'll move that.
Well, it needs custom games and private matches. That's what's going to move it forward. Being able to customize anything you want to do in there is going to just open up the possibilities for, endless amounts of everything. Changing the player health, changing what supers can do, changing, how much ammo spawns. You can change everything. If Bungie brings something like Forge to Halo, it's going to be, it's going to be no holds barred. It's going to be an instant success.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they'd probably have to take away like the loot aspects of the game from those Forge mode?
No,
Forge mode games?
You could set it to be whatever you want. You could either say, bring in what you want in a private match, or you could say private match.
I meant like rewards, like getting rewards from.
You couldn't earn rewards in a private match. No.
Yeah, that would completely there would be nobody in the actual matchmaking feeders if you could get rewards in a private match. It would just be a ghost town immediately.
If they added in private matches and stuff, that completely changes, like how the Crucible could function. It's almost like a cop-out answer because it's like the most glaring, No,
it's the most reoccurring thing that's brought up on the podcast, and pretty much in any forum, and It's the biggest. I think it's the biggest thing. I think Bungie actually knows it. We need private matches. It's just we need them.
And it's Bungie, coming from Halo and stuff, they know how much time people put in, to custom games, especially in Halo. Like, I know people that literally had 2 hours played in Reach and thousands of hours in custom games. So I can't sit here and say that they're oblivious to it at all. I know they know it's important. I know they probably have that itch, to add it. With the Bungie bounties and stuff, there are people there that care about PvP. They wouldn't have added the Crucible in, if they didn't care.
I think we've actually covered everything as far as moving the Crucible forward. I did want to go back to one thing that Slayer Age said about map design, and it is one of the most glaring problems of the Crucible. We do talk about it in the article, and we talked about it a little bit on the last podcast, but you were saying, Slayer Age, that you felt that Pantheon was the most balanced map?
In a sense. I don't really like the way that it's designed because there's really only 2 long hallways where you can have any significant ranged battles, but in those same hallways, the openings are so narrow that it's very easy to just back out if the fight starts looking even a little bit bad. And I want to have long-range open fights, and the map, aside from those 2 hallways, is completely all about corners. So while the map is completely symmetrical and good in that sense, it's extremely bad in the sense that you can very easily just walk around a corner with a shotgun pretty much 90% of the map. It also makes it confusing to use radar, which I am not a fan of that personally.
I do want to see more just variety as far as maps goes. I brought this up in the last podcast, but a lot of them use that 3-lane system that Pantheon and Burning Shrine uses. If you're looking at it from the correct perspective, essentially the lane is just, or the map is just 3 big lanes, and there's a couple corridors that kind of crisscross in between them. But then you have maps like Rusted Lands or not Blind Watch, Firebase Delphi, these really interesting maps that have a lot of movement. They can have a lot of movement around them that aren't focused on just 3 lanes, but those are also a lot more difficult to balance because then you have Blind Watch, which is the absolute worst offender of it by far.
Oh, I don't know. Firebase Delphi is pretty bad to in control. If you have A and B, there's not the people who spawn at C are pretty much screwed.
Yeah, both the Mars maps, we'll just say that, are pretty big offenders of that. If you hold B and then A or C, depending on which map you're on, you win. You just win. So I would like to see just better map design come from Bungie, and I know they know how to do it. They might just have to take a page from Halo map design, start with a box. So you have, I think one of my favorite maps that I used to try to recreate in other games was Hang 'em High on...
Oh god, that was a great map.
That's such a fantastic map. It would be brutal in Destiny, but it would be fun at the same time. I think it would be a really interesting map to bring those aesthetics into Destiny. You could easily make that a Hive-oriented map, and it would be successful, or a Mars-oriented one.
That's an interesting idea I hadn't really considered very much. If they actually oriented some of the maps more clearly around the enemies, that would be just a lot more aesthetically interesting to look at than what they've got going on. The Burning Shrine is Vex, but you don't think about that whatsoever as you're playing through it. And the Rusted Lands is sort of Mars, or not sort of Mars, sort of Hive.
Earth. Yeah, it is Hive. You only know that because of the ship.
But you don't even think about it at all. Another thing about Hang 'em High that's a really interesting point to note is there's actually a lot of height variety in that map, and you can't just jump 300 yards in Halo. So what they have in Destiny is a lot of maps where you can jump crazy high, but it doesn't actually serve a meaningful purpose. They don't take advantage of the fact that we have all these jumping abilities for actually moving around. They pretty much put obstacles on the map that you can just jump over, and it kind of defeats the point of having certain aspects of cover on the map, and it makes them less interesting because we aren't inclined to take advantage of high towers to snipe from. There's no good high points to go up to or down from, and there's no teleporters, and there's not really any variety as far as how you move around the map. You jump over whatever's in your way, and you stay out of lines of sight.
If I remember right, the original, or the lore aspect of the Crucible is essentially we're training our guardians against each other to make them stronger. Essentially, we're giving them battle experience, and there's very few maps that actually feel like a battle, or that feel like that they would be an arena or battles, something like that. The only map that actually feels like that is like the really large open ones, like Bastion and First Light and Skyshock, because they have that very open feeling of, okay, the other team is somewhere on this map, go. Do you guys think that maybe they could just like change some parts about, they might have to like actually go in and physically change parts of these maps, but as an example, on Rusted Lands, you have basically two main modes of travel. You go kind of outside toward, say you're trying to get from C to A. You either go kind of left and go by those water towers, and then you have another choice of going directly to A, or going like kind of even more outside and up that little staircase, or you end up going through B. And there's the little middle passage that goes through there. Mm-hmm. I think despite how it just took me a while to explain all the ways to get to A, it still basically boils down to left or right. And the middle one is very unused because obvious reasons, you get murdered there. I think just simple changes like adding an above middle route there as well, like knock some holes in the wall there so it makes it look like, a hive ship or something blew through there, I don't know, and make a middle path that goes above the other middle path. So
it's tough to do though, because if you have too many ways that players can go, is you create two problems. One is that you never know where players are coming from, and it kind of disrupts the flow. But then you also kind of run into the problem where there's too many players where people can be, and it slows down the game.
That is true. Rusted Lands is probably like a bad example for it, because that map is pretty balanced, at least I think so.
I think they should just make fewer bottlenecked areas. When you're coming into Rusted Lands, when you're coming in from the B side to get to A, like if you run around the outside of it, you're going into a tiny doorway, and it's the same story on A. Yeah, and if you come from behind, you're going in a tiny doorway. The only slightly arguable not tiny doorway to get into A is the broken out wall, and even that's pretty small and very easy to defend against, considering people have to jump in to get to it. And like if you're going to C, the C is, I guess, pretty open, but on most maps, B is the only one that's relatively, I guess you can get decent vantage points on it. It feels like there's a lot of areas in Destiny where bottlenecking is exactly the reason that shotguns are so dominant. Like on Twilight Gap, there's tons of areas where there's just corners that are probably not that helpful for gameplay purposes.
I think before the podcast started, you were talking a little bit about movement and how like quick we move in the game, and how that's also another deterring factor towards shotguns and why they're so powerful.
Shotguns dominate, in my view, in large part because you have extremely fast characters with high agility builds. They use blink to go even faster, so you can cover just tremendous amounts of space on any map in a matter of moments. And considering when you're trying to fight someone who's doing that kind of thing with their blinking and sliding and whatnot, it's pretty difficult to hit them while they're doing everything they can to strafe and be difficult to fire at on purpose. And because you can close gaps really quickly and you only need to pull up your shotgun for a moment and aim down sights for literally just an instant before you fire your first shot off, because the first one's the only one that matters with the shotgun, it's super easy to get a kill with the shotgun, but it's actually relatively difficult to kill someone who's rushing you with a shotgun, even if they're relatively far away. So while shotgun range is technically only 20 yards, because that's what Fellwinter's like in cover probably. I mean, more realistically, it's probably like, let's say 2 yards. Even though the actual range is supposedly 2 yards, they can realistically kill you from 30 or so by just sprinting at you, blinking twice, sliding once they get close, and then shotgunning you. And unless you've got the last word or something like that, and you're just spraying all over them, it's going to be extremely hard to shut them down. And most of the time, they're not going to run in a straight line, and there's going to be obstructions in the line of fire as they're running at you. Or they'll just come around a corner. I mean, it's just... it's not easy to prevent a shotgun guy from killing you when they just jump up from a ledge below you, and they blink, and then they're in your face instantly, and they just shotgun you. And the best defense against it, of course, is shotguns. So... That's why, I mean, there's a reason they're prevalent, and it's got everything to do with map design and character mobility, and wanting to not die. Because if you want to use a sniper, it's pretty hard to do it.
As much as we want to say, oh my god, shotguns are so overpowered, it is a larger issue. It's the maps and the movement and everything else that forms this perfect storm to make Fellwinter's Lie the biggest pain in the ass.
Pretty much. I would be pretty happy to see shotguns nerfed so far into the ground that they only one shot at like melee range, but we all know that'll never happen.
It'll be interesting to see what route they take, because I think the community is kind of in the same. A lot of the community is kind of in agreement that like Fellwinter's Lie is very strong. What should we do to possibly change it? Even though Bungie has stated that we need to, some weapons should feel powerful, but when you see so many people always using shotguns, or specifically Fellwinter's Lie, it's like, oh man, what do we do to change it? Because people have already spent that time to grind for it. They spent the motes to get that perfect roll for it.
What did you get? How many motes of light did you spend on yours?
Let's see. On the one that I actually reforged, I think I spent like 40 motes to get the roll that I wanted.
I think I spent like 4.
Yeah, I did 2, and I rolled it one time, and I got Look in the Chamber, Rangefinder, and Flared, Perfect Balance, and Lightweight. And like I was like, oh, I guess that's a good roll. And like I just started using it the start of this week, because I was always like running around with snipers and stuff. I enjoy that.
The range on it, when you get all the perks that kind of, even without it, I think like base stock, the thing has amazing range because of the range and the impact combo. But once you really get those perks going, the range is really crazy. Like it kills from way too far away.
I was streaming the other day with it and just got like 7 kills in a row where I was within reasonable, like if it was like a short range fusion rifle getting a kill in one shot.
And they killed fusion rifles. Like nobody uses fusion rifles anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean, why would you use a fusion rifle when you can use Fellwinter's Lie and it's a fusion rifle?
Yeah.
I've been trying to get footage for this Plan C versus Pocket Infinity thing, and it's such a huge pain because, like, in the areas where you would use a fusion rifle, Fellwinter's Lie dominates, and just shotguns in general dominate because the playing field has really learned how to maximize their use with shotguns. So fusion rifles are in a horrible place right now. The only time I could really get kills with one of them was Plan C, and I would just do the Plan C switch to it and immediately fire and get a kill. So that was like an instant shotgun blast. But aside from that, no, it was really difficult to get all the footage that I needed for it.
I know a lot of people hated fusion rifles, but I really liked them. I thought they were fun. The range on some of them, like Plan C, was too good. But like for the most part, they were fun to use because you had to charge them up. You had to play a little more strategically. And against a shotgun user, you had to use your environment to your advantage. So you were poking out just as you're ready to fire. But now, they have no benefit. There's no benefit to using them.
Yeah. I think a better nerf to them, instead of the accuracy nerf, would have been just make the damage fall off happen way sooner. Because I don't know if you were in that one match, Briar, but like I got sniped with a fusion rifle from, say you're on blind watch, and when you're in the B corridor, and there's like the very bottom of the stairway back where the door is, where you can kind of peek out from there. And then there was a guy all the way up top by like that special heavy, where like the door opens up at the top of the stairs. A guy all the way up there with a trolley problem took me out in one hit with a fusion rifle.
Trolley.
And I was silent, and then everyone else was like, did that just happen? Like the game just stopped for a moment there.
I saw that happen a lot with Plan C as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like, Plan C is an exotic,
Yeah.
It should kind of feel powerful. Like, do you think Fellwinter's Lie far outclasses Invective?
Yes.
And,
Oh, yeah, by a long shot.
So how do you... I don't know. I don't know how you go about balancing.
Well, the problem is you can't balance some weapons for PvP and PvE at the same time. They're, like, while Fellwinter's, yes, is good in both PvE and PvP, I'd argue that Invective is way better in PvE due to the ammo regeneration, the rate of fire on it, the burst potential. It's just a better all-around one for PvE, while Fellwinter's is better for PvP due to its, high damage output, high damage, high range, which seems to suit better for that PvP environment.
That's the whole point, I thought, of having a Crucible vendor and a Vanguard vendor.
Same.
It's like that, and they don't really capitalize that. Like, what is it? The Devil You Don't is sold by the Vanguard vendor.
Yeah. Horrible.
Why would you ever use that in PvP or PvE? But in PvP, it's actually a really fun gun.
Yeah, I tried using the Devil You Don't, and for whatever I can't even remember the reason, but it was so bad. Just because it's 5 rounds. It's 5 rounds in a hand cannon that has
in PvE.
Yeah, in PvE that has the low rate of fire or the high rate of fire, low impact style of hand cannon. And it's like no, this doesn't work.
But in the Crucible, it's a blast. Like, it's a really fun weapon to use.
I don't know if I'd call it a blast.
It's tied with
Word of
for
Crota.
the fastest time to kill for all legendary hand cannons.
Really?
With the Word of Crota. Yeah. Huh. They're the 2 fastest because it's got a high rate of fire and it's a 3-shot head kill.
Huh.
So, I mean, obviously the exotics are better. Yeah, you got to hit them. But if you get Field Scout on that from a drop, the thing is a beast.
Oh yeah, I'd love to get Field Scout on one, but the vendor version with only the 5 rounds can't recommend it.
It's still fun though. I mean, even with the 5 rounds, you just got to be really careful you don't engage more than one enemy at once. And you got to max your character out for reload speed on hand cannons.
So it's basically a horribly nerfed last word.
Yeah, actually, I'd say that. Yeah, because there's no auto fire for it.
No auto fire, smaller clip, lower fire rate, less damage.
It has better range.
That's true. It's got that.
Well, that doesn't seem to matter. Last Word's still, like, even though Last Word's range is so low, I'd still get hit by it from insane distances.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem. It doesn't care very much. It's like, yeah, I may have a low range stat, but I'm just gonna pelt you with bullets, and they're gonna hit like little rocks. And
do you guys think that some of the stats in the game are like not really representative of what they actually are? Like me, I'd like to see say the impact stat and how a sniper rifle with 20 impact does so much damage compared to a hand cannon with 20 impact or just something along those lines.
I don't really understand how that works because it seems to me that the stats have to be related to the weapon class in particular because a sniper and hand cannon can have similar. I mean, they're both going to have either 300 or 331 attack, and if they have a similar impact value, then hypothetically, shouldn't they do the same damage?
You would think,
but for whatever reason, they just don't.
Those bar graphs are confusing.
Yeah, I'd like to see those bar graphs actually represent something. Bungie, if you're listening.
Speaking of which, agility +2, what does that even mean? Am I right?
I know, coming from Call of Duty, I'm used to being lied to on graphs.
That's a good point.
So I don't even... A lot of that stuff doesn't even affect me, to be honest. Yeah. I look at it and I see, like the sniper rifles, low impact. Why would you use that? But, a headshot's a headshot.
Kind of.
And I'm pretty sure that No Land Beyond actually shows that it has a fire rate that's comparable to something like
It has this same rate of fire and impact as Icebreaker, I believe.
Yeah, what's up with that exactly? I mean, pretty clear that it takes you can read a book between firing No Land Beyond shots.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to see numbers, come into play, or if there was a. I'm sure
We've
that
got numbers.
Somebody
it's attack value 331.
Yeah. There you go.
I wish that the weapon classes didn't have. I wish that actually just didn't affect it at all. Like a sniper rifle should have impact of 80, and a hand cannon should never get above 20 or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then the range stat, the stability seems to be across all weapons. Like if a weapon has high stability, it's going to do well, and if it has low stability, it's going to perform poorly. But range stat is also another thing. Like if you get a sniper rifle with low range, it doesn't seem to matter. And
there's no maps big enough to make it matter.
Just hand cannons as well. You have the Last Word, which has very low range, and then you have Hawkmoon, which has huge range. And I can tell you that after using hand cannons for the entirety of this game, I can use them as the exact same. The range stat has very little meaning, very very little meaning on it. At least in terms of the actual length of the spread on those range stats. It doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, Last Word's range is pretty dismal, and you can't actually see a damage drop off until the enemy is just ridiculously.
Yeah, until they're at like, past scout rifle range, almost in sniper rifle range.
Yeah.
You would think it would be easier to actually write out the weapon stats like as they actually are, rather than with whatever system they're using.
Yeah, with all the modifiers.
Yeah.
Because like each weapon also has different modifiers for like headshot damage and everything else, and that's not told to you anywhere in the game either.
It seems like all of the important stuff is hidden.
Yeah. you go to PlanetDestiny, you actually look at the database for all the weapons, and I started mentioning some of that hidden data, and they're like, where are you getting this? How are you seeing this? What does it actually mean? What is aim assistance? Yeah.
Yeah. And how different. What is it? I can't remember. What gun has the highest aim assistance?
There's quite a few. Like Thunderlord has a 100 aim assistance. And
Oh my God, dude! Thank you for saying that in specific. I knew it. I knew this. I would sometimes play in the Crucible, and I'm an ardent defender of Corrective Measure. It's a great machine gun. People are like, Thunderlord is so good in the Crucible, and I'm like, there's no way that's possible because it recoils like a freaking bull.
Yeah.
So like when people are talking about it being good, I'm like, the only way that could ever possibly be true is if it had like a perfect aim assist stat.
Yep, it has perfect aim assist stat. A lot of weapons do. Like you have to go look at it a lot. I think they changed them recently. I can't really remember, but
they lowered them on the hand cannons.
Yeah, they lowered them on the hand cannons because before the patch, like Word of Crota had 100, and then so did Devil You Don't, because those were the two weapons I was trying around for one of those things I was doing, and now they're like down in the 70s.
I remember looking. Wasn't Word of Crota 61 maybe? I don't know. At any rate.
I can't remember. I can't remember. I just did the stats yesterday for one of our videos.
Do the guns have different stats for auto aim?
Auto aim and aim assistance are like kind of baked into the same stat as far as I can tell. Aim assistance is like when you're hovering over something and then someone else runs across and then it kind of moves.
I thought that was auto aim.
Your
I thought my understanding was that auto aim is your reticle's tendency to follow targets.
Okay, yeah, that's affected by the sights on the weapon usually, and I don't actually know what affects that. At least I don't see it on the PlanetDestiny one. I can't remember right now. It sounds like it'll take some investigating though. I'll definitely take a look into it.
That does mess you up sometimes when you're like two enemies crisscross.
Oh yeah,
while you're firing at one of them and like all of a sudden you're firing at the other.
Yeah, like in 3v3 when I killed two people with a sniper rifle and I see that red death ball turn into a blue one because that means they're getting rezzed. I'm like, all right, res your friend. And then someone else, and then like that guy right after he rezzed him, like runs past him, and then so my sniper rifle just suddenly goes off that way. It's like, no, you messed it up.
Gosh, I was trying to keep him out of the game for another 10 seconds.
Yeah. That is one of my favorite things, is like someone eternally rezzing their teammate. I'm like, I got ammo for days, son. We can keep doing this.
Oh yeah, I use a 6-shot Aphrodite Spear. It is so funny when they just keep reviving their teammate.
You guys are evil.
It's so much fun though.
Their teammates are evil. They're the one doing it.
Yeah, that's
like after he gets hit in the head one time, you'd think they'd be like, "Huh, it looks like he's got the reticle trained on my teammate's head." But apparently, they think more like, "Maybe it'll work this time."
Maybe he'll miss this time. He hasn't missed for the past 10 times, but maybe this time he'll miss.
You know what they say? 13th time's the charm.
Oh yeah.
Oh, maybe 14th.
Fool me 20 times. Shame on you. All right. We're nearing on 2 hours. I should probably call it for this podcast. Well, thank you guys for watching. This was the 11th PlanetDestiny podcast. Once again, Wally should be here next week as long as he keeps his promise. Maybe if you guys post angry comments in the YouTube video, he'll join us. This has been Patrick Casey with PlanetDestiny.
This is Briar Rabbit with PlanetDestiny and the Briar Rabbit channel.
This has been Corey, aka Six. If you guys want to come catch one of my streams, it's mlg.tv/6 SIX, and it's the same for Twitter. It's MLG6. So
This is SC Slayridge. If you ever want to watch me stream, I am on Twitch with the same name, SC Slayridge. Should be pretty easy to find. And on YouTube, I am under the channel The Legend himself. That's my clan's page. If you want to see any of the videos of World First, feel free to check it out.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.